Hey, and welcome back to the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast, episode 33. All about the 33.
Yep.
If you're watching on YouTube behind us and you see we got a 33 in the studio, ready to kind of just break it down. I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yep.
Let's get into it. So the 33.
Yes, it's the I don't know. I guess you could say it's the middle child of the later Skylines, right? Between the 32, 33, and 34, it's right in the middle.
Yeah, it's often the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people sleep on it, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's a boat, oh, it's heavy and big and blah, 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 all that stuff, right?
Yeah, heard it all for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, in reality, I don't think it's that much heavier, and it's really not that much bigger than the 32. You know,
Right.
I think it was only I think it's 1 inch wider and 3 to 4 inches longer.
Right, and I think it was just that kind of transition from the square, like shape, like body lines to that more rounded body line.
Right.
That kind of made people see it like in a different light.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like, yeah, if you look at the car, it is kind of bubblier, which kind of puts out I don't know, I guess you could say a bigger presence than compared to an R32. It's a little more boxier and just a little more, I don't know, it just looks more compact, which it is, but like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. But I mean, if you see the two cars right next to each other, you can definitely see.
Yeah, like the R33 definitely looks bigger. I mean, but if you put it next to the R34, it's really not. It doesn't really look bigger, but it does look more round.
Right. You put it next to a 35.
It's small, but nobody talks about that.
Right. No, everyone just gets stuck on, But whatever. I think it's a great chassis, and honestly, I think it's one of the kind of most slept-on chassis, especially if you're trying to get into one of these, right-hand drive sports cars, at an affordable rate.
Yeah.
Because, obviously there's a GTR, but there's a lot of submodels below that you don't really see that much because all you're seeing is, the importers are bringing in the GTS 25Ts or the GTS 4s or whatever it might be, right? But there's a lot of models under that you can get for, 10 to 15, maybe 18 for a really nice example. Maybe Series 2.
I mean, the straight up GTS you can get for 10.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like, granted, like, you got to have a purpose, like what's your plan, because you get what's called an HR33, the GTS, and you got a lot of work to do depending on what your plans are.
Right. I mean, if you just want to get a car, if you just want the right hand drive and you just want to cruise the block,
daily or something,
dude, GTS all the way. They come with a bulletproof RB20 like E, which is a single cam. I don't know. A lot of people call them boat anchors, but whatever. You're never going to break that thing,
It's like a D series in a Honda.
Yeah, exactly. So tried and true. You're not going to break it, especially if you're just going to be dailying this thing. So I think that's a good example. Like, if you want to just cruise the block, bam, you got it. You got a Skyline for under 20 grand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's dope. Yes, it's 4-lug. Yes, it has small brakes. Yes, it's non-turbo, but dude, it's a Skyline.
Yeah, and so quick little story about that. A guy that I went to high school with, he was kind of the odd guy out a lot of times, but he always like meant well, super nice personality, whatever. And so he always had said, like, as far as high school, like, I'm going to have a Skyline one day. I'm going to have a Skyline one day. And everybody's like, all right, Pat, whatever you say, man, and here we are, in our 30s. And what do you know? But Pat has a Skyline.
No shit.
And he loves it. And he's put his intake on it. He's put his wheels on it. He's put his speakers in it. And it's just a GTS. But he has a Skyline.
Yeah.
And to him, like, there's no difference between the car, the GTR behind us, and his GTS. They're both Skylines.
Yeah.
So I agree 100%. Like, if you're looking,
that dude loves it.
Yes, he absolutely loves it.
And dude, I bet he'll cruise that thing around everywhere
until
and never
he's
think
super
twice.
old. Yes, exactly. And so that's kind of the thing here. When we say R33 or even R34 or R32, we're not just talking about GTRs here. There is so many sub models below that.
Yeah. There's even a few that, I didn't really even, haven't really heard of much or even seen of much, like the Urban Runner.
Urban Runner.
The Urban Runner
What is that?
I'm not even sure, but it sounds dope, right?
Yeah, I mean, Urban Runner. Yeah, it sounds like it'd be something like more catered to the streets, so to speak.
Or city driving. I'm sure it has like options, like.
And that was the ER33.
Right. That was.
Oh no, actually, they had it in the HR too. So the ER and the HR had the Urban Runner,
right?
But the HR had a 40th anniversary Type X, which I'd assume is all gussied up.
Right.
Like,
so the Type X was like the nice the nice base model, I guess you could say.
Right.
It was the top of the line of the base. And then they also had a Type S that was kind of middle of the road. And then they had the Type G, which was like base model, and they took more stuff off.
And then there's just a straight GTS.
Yeah.
Like that's the very base model, probably crank windows, right?
Dude, honestly, I don't even think I've ever seen just a base GTS.
Yeah,
I
haven't either.
But like I said, I mean,
because they made so many like different variants throughout every submodel that like you sometimes maybe don't even know what you're looking at.
Right. And you got to think about like the owners of these cars in Japan. You know what I mean? Like think about like, for instance, G35s in America. Who was buying those brand new? It's older people looking to get their whatever.
Especially the Infinities.
The luxury sports sedan or whatever it might be. Same thing in Japan in the 90s, dude. Old people were buying these cars. They were putting the doilies on the seats and all that.
Oh, yeah.
You know
doilies.
what I mean? You know what I mean? So, like, I think these, like, base models are kind of slept on, and you can find really nice examples of, like, really well-maintained cars for a good price. You just got to put in the work and do your turbo and all that if that's what you want to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. And maybe some of the importers/exporters are focused on the GTRs because that's what's hot and that's what's commanding the big like turnover. But as the GTRs kind of start to get taken up, these submodels start to be more of the priority because there's still profit for the importer exporter in there, and there's still a buyer just like Pat. There's guys just like Pat that don't really care to spend the money on the GTR, but they just want a Skyline.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
So, there definitely is a lot of submodels, and I personally, beyond the engine, I don't understand. I mean, that must be it. The difference between ECR33, ENR33, ER33, HR33.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know that obviously the GTR, the BCNR33, I get that.
Yeah.
And I can see that the ECR33 runs the 25 DET.
Yes. Yeah. And that's going to be your, I don't know. I think they're more sought after than the 33 GTRs, right? The ECR 33, the GTS 25Ts.
Yep.
I think those are probably the most sought after. They come with the RB25 DET.
Yeah.
They come with 5-lug, the bigger brakes. It's pretty much the model right below the GTR.
Yeah, and they come in both 2 and 4-door.
Right, correct. And all these models come in both 2 and 4-door. They all come in automatic and manual transmissions, with the exception to the GTR.
But some of these models are heavy 4-door or heavy 2-door, it seems like.
Right.
Like the ENR33 has only one coupe version, but 4 submodels that are sedans.
Right.
So, it just seems to be that each of these models has its own specialty.
Right.
Like the ER33 is the 25 non-turbo.
Right.
And then the HR is the 20 non-turbo.
Right.
So,
correct.
I mean, it seems
it's kind of crazy how many they had.
Like, holy moly, dude. There's a lot here, like just the submodels.
Right. And so, like, I know you keep saying the ENR33. Usually on the chassis codes, I believe it's the N that justifies the all-wheel drive. So if it's got an N in that chassis code, that usually means it's all-wheel drive. So that's going to be the GTS4, which I don't think they had the RB25 turbo. They just had the NA RB25 in
that is what it was.
So, and you know, that's one of those things where, I don't know, I feel like with 32s, you see a lot of people do like conversion GTRs where they'll get the four-door or sorry, not the four-door. I'm stuck on four doors.
Yeah, he's a four-door
But
guy.
they'll get the four-wheel drive and they'll do a GTR conversion on it, and it'll be like, you know, fake GTR, I guess you could say. But I don't really see them doing that much for the 33.
Yeah, like it's not as much of a thing. It's
Right.
kind of wild how different, like the 32, 33, and 34, the communities around them, how different they actually are. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we talk about like, well, how many like R33s period are there?
Period?
Like how many did they produce?
Yeah, I mean, almost
What?
250,000
Yeah, it was like 180,000.
of GTRs.
No, of
Or-
R33s period.
Oh, of R33's period. I thought it was over 200.
I think it's 120 plus 30. So yeah, it was like close to 180.
Yeah.
But even so, it's 1,000. It's 166,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's like kind of a lot when you think about it.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot of cars.
I mean, probably the majority, you know, is pretty
be the
much
base
right.
models.
It's the ECR 33 with 64,000,
Right.
the HR 33 with 63,000.
Right. Which, I mean, you can imagine like most of those have been junked by this point.
Oh yeah, just like
'Cause those were the
Nissan
basic-
Sentra here, you know,
Right.
just like the basic cars that you used to see all the time on the roads, and now
Right.
they're kind of gone. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy because they really only built of the, like we talked about the all-wheel drive ENR 33s, they only built 7,500.
Right. You don't see many of those.
No, and that's probably why, because I
right.
mean 7,500 is not a lot.
Yeah. And you could imagine that those would probably be on the north side of Japan too, you know, where the weather's not as
Right.
nice, you know, a
the
bunch of
all-wheel drive.
snowfall and all that. So a lot of those probably ended up rotting out, you know. That's probably why you don't see them.
So what's your favorite color that they were produced in?
Man, honestly, it's that blue and silver two-tone that came on the sedans. I think that's a picture of one right there. You got
This?
it's on a coupe, but they
Yeah.
had that same color variant on
the
a sedan.
BNO, the dark green blue.
Yeah, I like two-tones for whatever reason, and Nissan really killed the two-tone game in the 90s. They had some cool combos, like with the S13. They had a few different two-tone options, and as well as the 33. And I just think the two-tone looks just way cool because I don't know, it's like one of those things. It's like an extra step in the process that makes it nice, right?
Yeah. It's just it differentiates it for
Yeah.
sure.
What about you? What's your go-to non-GTR? Like if you were to build a driver, an R33 driver that you were just gonna cruise around, you know, take trips in, whatever it might be, go to the grocery store, pick up the dog food, what would you get?
I really like this Silky Snow Pearl WK1.
Oh wow.
Yeah, just like that pearl.
Yeah.
White, like kind of like the S14 back here,
Right.
like just that like kind of creamy white. I mean, of course, the LP2 Midnight Purple is like cool, even though
This is the chassis where the Midnight Purple was introduced as well.
Yeah, so which is funny because since it was right, I mean, they didn't limit it to the GTRs. They had it on the 40th anniversary Type M's, the GTS 25T.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the R33 was the first one with a midnight purple, but it's not even the most popular. Like the R34 still gets all the clout for the midnight purple, even though it was just being continued from here.
Yeah.
Until they did the new variant.
Well, this is Midnight Purple 1, right?
Right.
And then they had Midnight Purple 2
Yeah.
and then Midnight Purple 3.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different other conversation.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, I mean, they came out with quite a few colors. I think there was 16 here.
Yeah, which is kind of wild.
Pretty decent. Yeah, for sure. So, right, these are all the base ones and then the GTR, right?
Yeah, and then the GTR, it has its own submodels and
Oh yeah, it
beyond that,
does.
right?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Between the GTR, the V-Spec, which is what we have here behind us is a V-Spec. The V-Spec N1, which is pretty much like your highest like kind of production model.
Right. I'd imagine it was, for the homologation for the
whatever
Super Tyco or whatever it was over there at the time.
The LM Limited, which is another what you're talking about.
Right.
Same with the V-Spec LM Limited.
Yep.
And then you have, like, again, I wouldn't say the red-headed stepchild, but the one that some people just don't get.
Yeah.
The Autech version, 40th
love
anniversary. Yeah, I know. I was there. Again, I know we've told this story, but we're on the highway in Japan, and we see this Autech version R33, and this guy just starts wetting his pants.
Dude, seriously, it was just so crazy, dude.
Yeah, it was a cool experience, especially being in Japan, and like that's like the first like super desirable on our list car that we see.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, and it was just old man
just
driving his car, like didn't even care what it was, to be honest. But like that was the Autech 33.
Yeah.
Sick.
No, I like it too. And, at first for me, the Autech was kind of like, whatever. But now I still don't like the taillights.
Yeah.
If you listen to like episode 2 or 3, that's like was my big complaint. I still don't like the taillights. However, I do really like the 4-door like thing because this is the only 4-door GTR.
Yeah.
That's it. So like I do really like that because not only is it unique, it's a family GTR, which is like not what you're normally getting. So
yeah, and they're sick. Like
they are sick. What are a few of the things that make it a little different than the just regular GTR beyond the 4-door?
It's got it's the 4-door, but it has all the GTR stuff, like the wide body that goes into the doors and all that, the rear doors. It's got the front bumper, pretty much all the aero, and even the wing, which is
that's
specific
cool
to the Autech. So I'm sure those wings are super rare. I think the interior is a little bit different.
Of course, yeah. So I mean, it's literally just a 4-door GTR, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's sick.
That is cool. And so when we talk about like, of course, there's production vehicles, and with the Autech was what, like not many, right?
No, I think it was between 400, 420, something like that.
Yeah, that's like pretty wild. And they only made it, in a few colors. They only made it in the
silver,
midnight purple, the silver, the white, and the black.
How many?
And they only made one black.
Yeah. How many of the midnight purple did they make?
43.
Damn.
So there's 416 total.
416.
Built.
Yeah.
That's not many.
No.
And like
it's one of the rarest, but like
you kind of see a decent amount of them for sale. Like it's not like some of these other vehicles where like, the V-Spec N1 only 11 made.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like while we were in Japan, for instance, we saw them at what's the place called? Why am I drawing? Global Auto.
Oh yeah.
There were a few at Global Auto. There were a few at another one of the stores we went to, car shops that we went to.
Yeah, I mean, we saw like they weren't.
We saw that one out in the wild. I mean,
yeah, the one out in the wild.
Then, just recently, Trevor from Keizo posted one up that he has.
One.
Yeah, and it looks sick. It's on the
so
LM GT4s.
Yeah, it's nice, and they're not asking a crazy price for it.
Yeah, it's super cool.
So the LM Limited.
Yes. So the LM
86 of those.
86 of the non V-Spec.
The non V-Spec.
Yeah. So the LM Limited, LM standing for Le Mans, was a tribute to,
the Le Mans car.
Yeah, and it was a tribute to their go at it, right?
Yeah.
And it came in a very specific color, only one color, and I don't think anything else is painted that color. And it's, I think a championship blue is the name of it.
Yes, it's BT2.
Yep. Championship blue. And like, when you see that color, you know that's what it is. And
yeah, it is only available in the LM Limited and the LM Limited V-Spec.
Right.
That's pretty
sick.
legit. And we actually got the opportunity to meet a guy in Japan with like an extremely well put together and clean LM. Like it was, you couldn't not see that car.
Right.
I feel like you there could be a sea of cars, and you would pick that car out immediately. It's 100%, so clean.
Dude. It is so sick, and the way that it's modded, you're like, no way that's an LM.
Right. You're like, yeah, he painted it like that.
Right. There's no way that this is like, limited under 100, and this dude's
just blowing it out in a good way.
Yes,
yeah.
And it's so sick, dude.
Yeah, give him a shout out.
Yeah, dude, it's the Shinichiro-san.
Shinichiro-san.
His name on Instagram is BCNR33 _LM _stance.
Yeah.
And like, dude, you go to his Instagram and it's all his car, and I could look at those pictures for days. And like, yeah, they might all look the same.
Yeah.
And, they're all from the same show or whatever, as you scroll down through. But, dude, that car is so sick.
Yeah, wear a helmet because your mind's going to be blown.
Yeah, seriously, 100%. Like,
so
one of the sickest R33s I've ever seen.
Yeah, and so we saw another one at Global Auto, which was all stock, which was cool to see kind of the difference.
Yeah.
Like, obviously we knew what was modded on Shihiro-san's, but like there it was totally stock. So we had already seen his in the days prior.
Right.
So then seeing that one at no, that was at Garage Defend.
Defend, yeah.
Seeing that was like really cool.
Yeah. And the LMs are cool because they got that little sticker on the C-pillar.
Yeah. There's
it's the
nowhere
flags,
else.
and it's just like, what?
Yeah, you're like, where'd he get that online from Acroman or what? But I mean, and that's what's really cool, and that's really, not to speak for us both, but I feel like these little touches, like on some of these cars, that's what really helps make them special, even though it's just a sticker, or it's just a paint color, or it's just, it's like this. To the extreme enthusiasts, like I'm sure some of you that are listening, like these are the tiny little touches that make that car worth whatever it's commanding on the market.
100%. And also on the topic of the LMs, that has to be one of the rarest, right? One of the versions of that, in the 400R LM Limited.
Yeah, that's like,
that's
400R LM Limited.
Literally 101.
Yeah, that's like ridiculous. You're not getting that.
Yeah, and that was at Garage Defend when we were there, right?
Yeah.
Because they had just either acquired it or were about to sell it.
I think they
Something
had
was going
sold
on.
it.
Hadn't taken delivery on it yet.
Yeah, like, which is pretty wild, when you think about these different things. And so... But it really doesn't stop there, right? After that, you have the Nismo Amori factory cars.
Yeah.
Which really, like, there's, the 400R, which is one of those Amori built cars, like 44 built.
Yeah.
Like what? Like 44 humans. Get to, and really less than that now.
Right.
But 44 humans get to own the cream of the crop.
Yeah. Insane when you think about it. Like, that's not many cars at all. Like,
it's
none.
not. And like
how can you even create a market on that when like something's not even being sold or transferring hands on something that rare, when there's less than 50 cars.
Less than 50 cars.
How do you even put a price tag on some of these things? They're literally priceless in a sense because they never come up for sale and never swap hands. And when they do, it's just like astronomical,
insane prices. Like you're like, holy moly! Like I just traded my house for a 400R.
Two houses.
Yeah, and so 44 being built in that's at least obtainable. What's unobtainable? Is the GTR LM,
right?
Which again,
LM,
as you point
out,
and as you pointed out. The homologation. They had to make one road car. They built 6 total. They built one road car.
And that is on display, right?
Yeah, which Nissan still owns.
Yeah.
So like, what about,
They didn't even sell it.
Like, what the heck, dude? Like,
you didn't have to sell the car; you just had to make
it.
one.
Yeah,
right?
manufacture it, right? And so, you know, I mean, that's pretty wild if you think about it. And it really, you know, the road car wasn't anything crazy,
right?
You know, like
because it had to come in the engine that fit the class.
Yes.
All that, right?
Which was still just an RB26.
Right.
You know, it was like nothing crazy beyond the body, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's the big difference. And that dude, huge. Like
you thought this thing was a boat?
Yeah.
Dude, that thing is like
you can see like
heck?
the corners of the headlights, like there's so much space on the outside, after where the fender comes in. Like
yeah.
Holy
it
cow!
Almost
There's a
looks
few,
like
literally, it has to be a few inches wider.
Yeah, it really is. It is crazy. And this was in 95 and 96.
Yeah.
They used the GTR LM as you said, the Le Mans car.
Right.
And the actual race car though, like that was pretty legit. It had a sequential 6-speed.
Yeah.
It had over 200 horsepower more than the road car.
Yeah.
Like these things were like beast.
Did the race cars end up having the RB28X or RB20 26 or 28X?
So both of them had the 26.
Okay.
Cranking out 700 horsepower in that 6-speed sequential.
I see.
But like interesting enough, right? Like, this is 95, but they only had 4-pot brakes.
Yeah.
On this crazy car.
Yeah.
They got like small little brakes on it.
Little guys.
Yeah, but like so GTR LM definitely like one of those, like if you ever got the chance to even sit in it,
yeah,
you better fart in those seats, dude. Because like you're never sitting in that thing again, dude.
Yeah. I mean, dude, if you're even close enough to breathe on it.
Yeah, like that's legit. And
right.
It's at Nissan. It's Nissan at Nissan Crossing right now in Japan on display, just in a window box, just chilling.
That's crazy. That's how that car lives its life now, is just being carted around. Because I remember
showed off
a few years ago. It was at some show, and they had it on a 4-post lift, and you could actually walk under it and check it out.
That's legit.
There were a few YouTubers that were kind of bashing on it because like some of the one-off parts that you have to do to make these cars,
crazy thing,
they're like, oh, these welds are nasty, this isn't cut, like this is kind of hacked, and like kind of a hack job, but
one of one, bro.
Yeah, it's literally, I mean,
come on, dude.
Right.
Like, we're not talking about mass production of parts here, because sure, the GTR behind us, maybe the LM shares certain parts, right? And that's easy. Yeah. But the parts that make it an LM,
right, correct. Like
they're only made 6, period, and the 5 race car versions were still different, had to be supported different, had to be, so the road car was just to skimp through that homologation.
Yeah.
For
sure.
So beyond the 400R and the GTR LM, the Amori factory does offer 2 different levels of restoration for these cars.
Better pull out your purse.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it better be full, because
dude,
the CRS, the Clubman race spec,
insane.
Yeah, and I mean, probably some of you guys already know about this, but if you haven't, look it up. The Clubman race spec.
Yeah,
these cars are sick.
Yeah, when did they start doing that?
2019.
2019. So that must have came on like around the Heritage.
Yes, and that is like part of the other stuff that Nismo still offers for the R33. And that's what some people maybe don't even know, because a lot of this is out of like, basic guys like you and me. This is out of our price range, right?
Yeah,
in the sense of the CRS or even the Nismo restored car. Yeah. These are 2 different programs. The CRS and the restoration car is 2 different things.
So I'd imagine the Clubman race spec, that's what you want if you're trying to go to the track, if you're trying to go to Fuji, trying to hammer.
And like the Clubman race spec is also built to their spec, right? Like it's refurbed to their spec,
Right.
as opposed to a Nismo Restore car is refurbed to your spec and budget.
I see.
So like for example, it's like a la carte
Yeah,
with the Nismo Restore car, and the Clubman race spec is that is what you're getting. You're getting it in that gray. You're
Right.
getting the brakes they put on it. You're getting the interior
I
they
see.
put in it. So, I would say that the Clubman race spec is kind of like the Built by Legends program,
Right.
where they're completely stripping the car. They're giving you a brand new R33,
Right.
in that sense. Whereas the Nismo Restore car, if you just want the underbody taken care of, or if you just want the engine refresh,
That's wild.
so which is cool, right? Like all of us, like dudes over here, we don't get that.
No.
No.
We closest we got is Tommy F.
Yeah, and right, exactly. And so that's kind of the thing is then they offer the Nismo Heritage parts, right? And that helps you pretty much replace pieces that otherwise would have been discontinued. Right? Whether it's the N1 block or whatever it might be, you can get these parts and still replace the window trim.
Yeah.
These different things that when it comes to restoring these cars, you would have been just shit out of luck.
Right. That's good.
Right, because other manufacturers aren't doing this. They're not recreating these parts. Think if you could get some of these other models, non-Nissan, if you could get their parts, how much better it would be.
Yeah, 100%, because nothing beats OEM quality.
Right, and then, right, and in that sense, you're still able to call it like OEM, as you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Like instead of, I got all these aftermarket parts. Well, no, it's just clean OEM.
Right.
And so the, looking at this, the R33 GTR was only delivered to Japan beyond 94 that were exported to, England or Great Britain.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild too. 94. Only 94 R33s.
Yeah, I wonder why they did that. I wonder if that had something to do with the homologation or something like that.
So they could race over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It is weird. It's pretty cool though, just, how, I don't know, how like pretty much unique it was to Japan, right? Like whereas like other models of their cars were just getting shipped everywhere.
Right.
But like these cars were like so unique to Japan, and maybe now they kind of regret that because everybody's coming over and like, I'm sure they're like,
man, we really should have shipped them back then, dude.
Yeah, we would have made way more off these. And so this is all the info on the kind of factory stuff.
Right.
But then there are the guys who take, any given model that we're talking about, and then they modify them to their specs, right? Just like me, or just like, a lot of the guys. But there are some that were famous, that like kind of put the R33 on the map, you could say.
Yeah, and I think, I 100% think so too. And, one of the cars that probably the first R33 I saw that I didn't even know it was an R33, probably the same with you, probably the same with a lot of the people, but like watching Fast and Furious, right?
Find another way home, pizza boy.
Right. Right, exactly, dude.
Absolutely.
That was the one, right? That was probably a lot of people's first time they ever saw an R33. What about you?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's the first time I saw an R33. I didn't know it was an R33.
Yeah.
I thought it was a Maxima or something, a 240. I didn't really know because that's what was pulling up next to it, right? They had the Maxima, they had the 240, and then there's this thing, and you're like, what is this banana-looking car? But, in reality, it was actually a 95 R33.
Yeah.
And
V-Spec, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, driven by Leon.
Yep.
And so the thing about this car was, and I don't know if anybody listens to Craig Lieberman or not.
Yeah.
But the car was actually like it was red or some. It was like
I think it was silver.
Silver, yes. It was a different color, and they painted it yellow to get more attention in the movie.
They called it Big Bird.
Yeah, and the paint job was actually like kind of crappy. Like I saw some like up close pictures and stuff. Obviously, it has very limited exposure in the movie.
Modern image graphics.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
it was a movie car. But
yeah, I mean, it had a few small modifications like HKS fuel rail, air filters,
the basic bolt-ons from back in the day. It had work wheels.
Yeah, it did.
The
It had
VSXXs.
for sure. Which is back then pretty cool. Like in that sense, and it was a V-spec because it had the stock Brembos.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was kind of a wow. It was it participated in Pikes Peak in 1999.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty wild.
Because I mean, the owner of that car is actually, or back then in that time, was Sean Morris from Top Rank. So that dude's been in the game a long time.
Oh yeah, he has. That's like why he has like the credentials that he does, right? Is just not because of this car in this movie, but because he has been in the game. That long. Yeah. That like his car is in Fast and Furious.
That was like one of the first probably in the States.
Yeah.
And sat into it because after he had sold the car to someone else.
Yeah, of
and
course.
Then the whole Motor X thing went down, which whatever happened there happened, right?
Yeah,
and
I wonder how involved in that he was.
I'm not sure, but back then, you were hearing of these cars getting crushed all the time and just all this crazy stuff, and that's actually what ended up happening. I think a guy in Wisconsin put it up for sale, and a guy had came to buy it, and he asked about titling it or something because the guy said he was from Florida. He was like, yeah, you shouldn't have a problem at all registering this in Florida or titling it, whatever. That buyer happened to be an undercover agent and pretty much seized the car right then and there from the guy, or, ended up seizing the car and crushing it. Sad day.
Yeah, that is the truth too,
and,
huh?
He even pleaded, he was like, hey, let me ship this out of the country. Like, let me do something. Like, don't just take this. I don't know if they were 6-figure back then, but I could imagine it'd be somewhere around that. Don't take this and just crush it. Like, let me do something with it. You know what I mean? Like,
which is crazy because now they're letting people. They're auctioning off the R34s that are illegal and letting people take them out of the country. Back then, this guy gets 2. Justin Bino gets 2 crushed.
Yeah.
And with no option, you won't need to pay a fine, and we won't keep coming after you if you just let us crush the cars.
Right. Like what? Like, dude, if they would have known how much money they were just crushing, literally, like. I don't know. That just seems wild.
But I feel like they didn't care. Like,
they're literally burning money.
So, just like a Sean Morris, cool guy. Just another little info about him. He does own Top Rank, but he provided the Bentley Continental GT, the '92 Mercedes S-Class, and he built the Ford Mustang with the RB26 in it.
Yeah, that's
dude.
sick.
What a friggin' legend, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even realize this. Like, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I, like, had no clue that I'm, like, friends with the dude that...
doing all this.
Yeah, which is, like, whatever, but it's just cool because he has contributed to our community of car people, like, quite a bit. So, yeah, everybody knows this car, right? Mostly. But there's another one, right? Another, quite famous R33.
Yeah, the HKS.
Yeah, the HKS.
The
33.
T002, I guess.
The 002.
Yeah, it was the black one with the, I believe it's blue, kind of pink, just like 90s graphics on the side. It says HKS Power, real huge. When you see it, you know what I'm talking about. But that one's definitely a favorite. And it held, I'm pretty sure it held records at Tsukuba and all that. It had came up for sale. I believe it was in 2020.
Yeah.
And a guy from Texas that has a YouTube channel called TRC, that racing channel, ended up winning the auction. And when he did, HKS contacted him and was like, you think we can do a refresh on this? Or would you like
Yeah.
for us to do a refresh on this or a restore or whatever it might
Yeah,
be?
that would be dope if they called.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, how could you say no, right?
Right.
Like, no matter what the
please
price
don't
tag.
make this badass. Please don't.
No matter what the price tag, you have to say yes, right?
Yeah.
Because that is something that does not happen.
Yeah. Plus,
One, buying an HKS car does not happen.
Yeah.
Two, having them do a factory, like HKS factory, like restore on it, like.
Yeah,
sick,
I mean,
dude.
you're in
That
good
is-
shape because at that point you're now making history.
Yeah,
Like,
and dude,
by
making
saying
the
yes.
value just.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
It's going to be one of those cars you can't put a price tag on.
That you keep in the garage on the top of a 4-post lift and never touch. Yeah.
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 So yeah, I mean, he had him do the HKS refresh, and then HKS actually took it back to the track and set it up for him, and
Now
car
it's
was
a
still
monster.
car was still sick. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Then they shipped it over. He got it, and now it resides in Texas, which is kind of
Dang.
wild.
That is wild.
There's a lot more to that story.
There is,
Yeah,
but we're a little limited on time.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure we got everything in here.
Yeah.
R33 being, definitely one of my favorite Nissans.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's why I got one. And so we just felt, being the 33rd episode, that, making it all about the 33 just totally made
Had
sense.
to do it, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
If only we could win for 33 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but shout out to Nissan for making these amazing cars and giving
100%.
us, these objects that really motivate us to continue being a part of this industry
Yeah.
and doing our thing. But for now, make sure you follow us at RHDGUIS, and I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
See ya.
Peace.